Hello and welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. My name is Alfonso Peluso and I'm an associate teaching professor in the College of Architecture at IIT, the home of the legendary Mies van der Rohe, and I'm adjunct faculty at Columbia College Chicago in the Interior Architecture program. Shout out to all my students. I hope you're having a great day. Today we're going to look at how we can turn an image, like you see on the left, to a 3D object that you see on the right. This technology, image to 3D, is very, very new, but it's very exciting. All right, before we jump into the tutorial, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, what are you waiting for? Search me up on YouTube, click on the subscribe button, click on the down arrow to receive all the notifications. If you are into digital design, there is something here for you. There's VR, there's AI, there's 3D modeling, there's parametric modeling, there's real-time rendering, something for everyone. Help me get to 14,000 subscribers. I'm pretty close. That's going to be a great milestone. Also, connect with me on Instagram at my first name Alfonso _ my last name Peluso. See what I'm up to. Lately I've been putting out a lot of videos to help architecture students along on their journey, and I've been getting a lot of great response from that. Help me get to 11,000 followers. That would be great. All right, today we're going to be using ComfyUI, which is a user interface for Stable Diffusion. It's a visual scripting node-based interface. If you've used Grasshopper, ComfyUI should be similar for you. If you want to check out my ComfyUI beginner videos, just search up ComfyUI Alfonso Peluso and you'll find those. All right, to start off, we have to load in something called TripoSR. So let's take a look at that for a second. So this is a company, Tripo, and they're making three-dimensional models, I think mainly for gaming, but they're AI three-dimensional models, which is pretty cool. And they've teamed up with Stability AI. Stability AI is the company that brings you Stable Diffusion. So Tripo and Stability UI have brought you this TripoSR fast 3D object generation from single images. And you can see here on the top row, you have some very simple images, and the bottom row, you have the 3D models of those images. So very new technology, very excited on where this is going to go. All right, in ComfyUI, we're going to click on the manager, and we're going to click on Install Custom Nodes. And we're going to search for TripoSR. And here you'll find an install for the custom nodes, and it's brought to you by Floaty1. So Floaty1 has brought you that one, and we're going to click on install. So that does take a while to install, so you have to be patient. You have to be patient, and then follow the prompt at the bottom here. So it wants you to restart and then refresh the browser. So I'm going to restart, click OK, and then I'm going to refresh the browser. All right, and I'm going to double click. What I should be looking for is I'm going to look for Tripo, and I should see some Tripo nodes here. So I'm just going to bring out the loader, and I'm just going to bring out all three of those that were there. The sampler and the viewer. So we're going to make use of all three of these. Okay. So one thing that you'll notice is there needs to be a checkpoint model for TripoSR, and it's just using one of my Stable Diffusion checkpoint models, but I need the TripoSR model. So we can find that over on GitHub under Floaty1. We can find it here, and you can go down to download TripoSR, and I'll put a link to this in the description. I can click on that. And then I can download the file. You can download it here using this link. Or I can find it straight away on Hugging Face, just searching for Stability AI TripoSR, and then finding that model checkpoint. and I'll put a link to this one as well in the description. So I'm using this in RunPod. So RunPod is a place where you can rent GPU servers, and I have a lot of tutorials if you search up Alfonso Peluso RunPod showing you how to use RunPod. So that's just to let you know I'm using RunPod. So I'm gonna right click on this and I'm gonna use copy link address, and then I have to go over to my RunPod, and this is gonna be in my ComfyUI models. Eventually it's gonna go into my checkpoints folder. I can't go directly into my checkpoints folder, but I can move files into it. So I'm gonna start my terminal. I'm gonna use wget space, paste it in, and that's gonna take a little while to download that checkpoint. Okay, so that's been downloaded. I have it over here on the right, and I'm just gonna rename this. So I'm gonna rename this TripoSR and make sure it has a dot checkpoint extension. There's the dot CKPT extension. And then I'm going to move that into my checkpoints folder. And then back over in ComfyUI, if I refresh, I'm going to try refresh. It's a little less disruptive. Refresh on the right, and I'm going to go ahead and I can find that. If I click here, I can find that Tripo SR checkpoint. So we have that. Okay. So I'm just looking at this TripoSR Sampler and seeing what it needs. So the first thing it needs is the model. I have that from my TripoSR model loader. It's looking for a reference image and a reference mask. Okay, so I can get this from a capsule that it's called REMBG. It's remove background. And that is not preloaded into ComfyUI. That I have to get from the ComfyUI Essentials custom nodes. So I'm going to go to Manager, Install Custom Nodes. I'm going to type in Essentials, and I'm going to search for that. And here's my ComfyUI Essentials, and I can go ahead and install. Okay, that can also take some time, and we're going to follow the prompt below. So restart and then refresh the browser. Now this might happen to you. Sometimes ComfyUI is connecting to the server, so sometimes you might get a bad gateway. Just have to be patient and refresh this a few times. Okay, so now I'm going to double click and I'm going to type in my REM, and there I have my REMBG session. So I'm going to click on that one. Okay, so this one, we need to set a couple things. The model needs to be U2Net general purpose. So U2Net general purpose, and the provider needs to be CUDA. Okay, so that will get that running properly. Okay, now we can bring out load image. So I'm going to double click and type in load image. And here's my load image. Okay, so before I plug in them, before I get my sampler here in the mix, I'm looking for a reference image and a reference mask. So I'm going to put this over on the right for a little bit, and I'm going to bring out my image, remove background, image remove background, and I'm just going to see what I can plug in here. So I'm going to plug in my image here. This has an REMBG session. So we see that there, and I can plug this into that. Okay, and it has outputs image. So I can plug image into reference image, and then it has mask. I can plug mask into mask. Okay, and then the last part is to plug the sampler into the viewer. So that's it. It's a pretty short workflow, which is what ComfyUI calls these scripts. They call them workflows. A couple things I'm going to add to this. So I'm going to add a preview image so that I can see that image being previewed when it generates it and see what's going into the TripoSR sampler. And I'm also going to preview the mask. These are going to be helpful for you to see them. And we'll see that in a second, what's actually being generated. Okay, so let's start. We need to start with an image. So this is looking for an image. So I'm going to choose a file to upload. And I'm going to choose something really simple. I'm going to choose this column. And I'm going to go ahead and cue the prompt. All right, so that's going to take a little while, especially the first time you run it, because it's got to load in the checkpoints. So the first time you run it is going to be longer than the other times that you run it. But here's our little model, and you can see it's from a single image. So it's not too bad, you know. It's got the front pretty good because it had the front image, but has a little bit of a hard time figuring out what to do in the back. But this is an actual mesh file, an OBJ file, and that file is going to get saved under your ComfyUI output folder. So your ComfyUI output folder, you're going to find these meshes being saved there. I can make this a little bigger. So that's the OBJ file, and we can just right click on it and download it. We can start to look at these. And I'm just going to go ahead and open that up in Rhino. Well, what I'll do is I'll open up a new file first. So I'm going to open up a new file. And I'm just going to import that OBJ file. I'm going to import it. I'm going to accept the defaults. So it comes in laying down flat. So there it is. So I usually, if I go to my 4 viewports, what I usually do is I rotate this. So I'm going to rotate it so that it's kind of straight up and down, and then I'm going to rotate that so it's more vertical. Okay, and now when I orbit in this view, I'm going to rotate it just a little more. Alright, and we'll make this, we'll deselect it and make it rendered. Alright, so there it is. Not too bad. Alright, so let's go for broke. Let's look at the image I showed you at the beginning. So this is something created in Midjourney. It's an AI image. It's of a tower. Let's just bring it directly into ComfyUI and see what we get. So I'm just going to click over there in the lower left, and I'm going to click on choose file to upload, and I'm going to upload this skyscraper, this Instagram skyscraper that I made. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and just cue the prompt. Okay, so that generated pretty fast. So what you notice here is it really smushed the tower down. It made it really short and stumpy, so it smushed it down. So what we can gather from that is it really wants to be a square image. So if I open that image up in Photoshop, if I open it up here, I can make it square by expanding the canvas size. So I'm going to just expand it the same as the height, so the 1546. Okay, so there's my square image. And I'm going to go ahead and make a save as. So this is going to be my square 1. And I'm going to make a square 2 in a little bit here. So this is square 1. And I'm going to go ahead and bring that into ComfyUI. And cue the prompt. So sometimes this ends up being slow. You want to view the queue, and you want to see that it's running. So it's running and it's making the images. All right, so this gave it a pretty challenging task, removing the background, and I can see that. The model is definitely more vertical, but it had a hard time separating it from the background. So I'm just going to help it out a little bit in Photoshop using Photoshop's new tools. So I'm going to open up that tower, and I'm going to click on the object selection tool. The new object selection tool just works fantastic in Photoshop, and I'm just clicking on the tower here and let Photoshop think about it. And there it has done a pretty good job selecting the background. So I'm gonna, or selecting the tower from the background. So I'm gonna do an inverse selection, and I'm gonna delete that. I'm gonna go ahead and double click and make this a layer so that I can delete this. Okay. And then I'm using Control D to deselect. So that's pretty good. I'm gonna take away a few things here, like this little area here. I'm just gonna use the polygonal lasso tool. And I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. I'm gonna delete this little bottom area here. Yeah, this little kind of, it's like the fog and the clouds that were made in the original AI image. Just gonna delete that. And I'm gonna make it square again. So canvas size, I'm gonna make it the same width as the height. And I'm gonna go in there and just crop in a little bit closer. So I'm gonna use my crop tool, my shift key, to get a square image. And this is gonna be my PNG. I just overwrote the original. Alright, let's make this square too. And I'm just gonna go to my history here and get it back and then save it so I have my original file here. Okay, so now we're going to bring that PNG into ComfyUI. So we're going to go over to choose file to upload. That's my square 2. So we're already helping ComfyUI and TripoSR. We're helping it along a little bit by just using Photoshop and preparing the image ahead of time. And let's go to Qt Prompt. So now you see that mask preview is just way nicer, way simpler, and then you get your model. All right, so cool. And now we can download that model. Okay, before we open that up, just want to talk about a couple things. So there is a resolution here, and you might try and increase the resolution like I did right away. I'm like, oh, let me try 2048, and that was not rendering out. I wasn't getting any output. The geometry resolution at 256, if we look at that in Rhino, the mesh is pretty high resolution already, so leaving that is fine. And then I looked at this threshold, and 25 just seems to be a really good setting, which is the default. At 0, it's more crude, and at 100, I really didn't see much different results in the mesh. So the defaults look pretty good. Okay, so let's go ahead over to Rhino, and let's open. Let's just open that last OBJ. Just click to accept the defaults there. All right, let's rotate this thing. All right, something like that. Let's take a look at it. Let's deselect it. Let's make it rendered first. All right, so there you see, that's the tower. That's the model of it. Now, if I make this shaded and I zoom in, you look at that mesh. There's a lot of resolution. That's a high resolution mesh. And when I select it and I type in the command check, it's not too bad of a mesh. It's a pretty good mesh. It doesn't have any naked edges. So that's something I can 3D print. It has one face that the face normal differ substantially from the vertex normals. So there's some things you can do like unify mesh normals to solve that. But it's a pretty good mesh. It's not too bad. It has 6 disjoint pieces. which still can be 3D printed. So the mesh is pretty good. All right, that is all I wanted to cover. How to go from an image like on the left to a 3D model on the right. Super excited about this technology. All right, I hope you found this exciting as well. All right, leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought of the video. Also, give me a thumbs up. My head's going to pop up in the upper left. Click on that to subscribe. I'm going to put 2 reference videos in the upper right and the lower right. All right, thanks for watching and have a great one.